let's jump right in. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the fascinating, seriously layered psychology of why roughly 2/3 of Gen Xers never got a single tattoo. You know, it's a psychological profile that's deeply interesting, highly intentional, and honestly, way more complex than just simple fear or indecision. So we're going to unpack the exact reasons why so many of you decided to keep your canvas completely blank. We've literally all been at that summer cookout, right? You're standing there, someone notices your bare arm, and they ask this exact question. They look at you like you're somehow stuck in 1987, and you can almost see their brain working, trying to figure you out. Are you highly principled, a little suspicious, or just, profoundly uncool? Usually you just shrug and move on, but that momentary surprise on their face, it's super telling, because there's actually a deep, highly structured psychology behind that blank arm that most people just completely miss.
And this data perfectly illustrates that. Look, Gen X was the bridge generation. You watch tattoos go from a gritty, underground biker thing to just an everyday mainstream thing. Yet a massive 68% of you completely opted out. You were the very first group of 20-somethings who could safely walk into a clean, well-lit strip mall studio. You watch your siblings, your college buddies, and your coworkers start showing up with all this steady, casual ink. But according to the numbers, only about 32% of your generation actually got tattooed. You were eligible, you were the right age, and you were front row as the culture completely shifted. And still, a staggering majority of you chose to just sit it out.
Okay, so let's look at layer 1, protecting the future stranger. Think back to when you sat there at 22. You realized that 40-year-old you was essentially a complete stranger, probably with entirely different tastes. And you made the active decision not to make a permanent choice on behalf of someone you hadn't even met yet. Think about it. Most people view their future self as just the current version of themselves, maybe just with a few more wrinkles. But you knew better. You watched yourself aggressively love Limp Bizkit, and then quietly stop. You rocked a goatee, and then later practically apologized to your own mirror. By your mid-20s, you had gathered enough data on yourself to know for sure that your tastes and opinions just weren't stable. You simply refused to bind that future stranger to a permanent decision made by a 22-year-old.
And hey, the tattoo regret data actually backs you up on this. It shows that roughly 1 in 4 tattooed Americans regret at least one piece, usually because they committed to it when they were super young. So those numbers completely vindicate that hesitation you felt. That quiet little no you heard in the back of your head when you almost walked into the tattoo shop, that wasn't fear. It was actually a highly accurate statistical prediction. You accurately forecasted that putting permanent markers on a temporarily evolving identity might just lead to a lot of regret down the road.
Which brings us right into layer 2, refusing the cultural wave. I mean, you literally watched this exhausting parade of trends pass by. From the 1996 tribal armband all the way to the infinity sign, and your generational BS detector just went on high alert. You saw the guy in your softball team get baptized by the tribal band. Then came the lower back pieces, the Chinese characters that, sometimes accidentally meant soup, the dolphins, the dream catchers, and the barbed wire. You saw the exact same design showing up on 3 different people at the exact same bar. It wasn't that you hated tattoos necessarily. It was more that you noticed people were just picking whatever was on the wall that particular year and calling it a deeply permanent personal statement. Marketing research actually shows us that Gen X is practically allergic to group enthusiasm. So when absolutely everyone started getting inked, your innate instinct was to slow down, pause, and just step back. Whenever the phrase "everybody's doing it" gets attached to a cultural movement, your generation's collective instinct is to slam on the brakes. You are incredibly skeptical of mass adoption. You prefer to wait and see where the dust settles, right? And in the case of tattoos, well, the dust just kept settling on a new, fleeting trend every 5 years, and that just kept reinforcing your decision to stay out of the pool entirely.
All right, moving on to layer 3, the blank arm signal. In behavioral psychology, there's this concept called costly signaling. It's kind of like a Peacock's tail. A tattoo is a costly signal of absolute commitment. It announces to the world, look, I'm committed to this idea, I endured physical pain for it, and I'm going to wear it forever. But here's the twist. Opting out is its own powerful signal. Your blank arm sends the exact opposite message. It loudly declares that you haven't locked in, you're still listening, and you are actively keeping your options open. The blank canvas says you haven't found anything you trust quite enough to stamp on yourself permanently. It signals adaptability and a flat-out refusal to finalize yourself prematurely. And a 2012 study caught this real personality difference perfectly. It showed the untattooed group is wired for higher conscientiousness and being much more cautious about visible, permanent decisions.
The tattooed group, they scored higher on extroversion and sensation-seeking. But the untattooed group scored remarkably high on conscientiousness. Now that is just the academic polite way of saying that you think things through thoroughly. You don't make impulsive, highly visible moves, you calculate, you observe, and you prioritize caution over pure sensation.
Let's dig even deeper with Layer 4, the body as inventory.
Gen X uniquely views their physical body as a piece of owned property. Because you watch things fall apart from neglect, you understand that your body is your only true inventory, and you simply do not deface inventory on an impulse. Most people kind of treat their bodies like background scenery, right? But Gen X learned early on that jobs can fire you, relationships can end, and hey, the bank technically owns your house. The only physical asset with your name carved into it from birth is your body. You grew up watching adults skip oil changes and put off roof repairs until literally everything fell apart. So the quiet lesson you absorbed was to protect the things that are truly yours. You don't impulsively decorate the only vehicle you have to navigate the next half-century in.
Finally, we reach our crucial point. Layer 5, nailing down private identity.
Pew data actually shows that 69% of people get tattoos to honor or remember something. They're often using ink as an external signpost to nail down a slippery identity in this highly observed online world. Younger generations exist in a space where they are constantly watched, photographed, and perceived. So for them, identity feels incredibly fluid and, frankly, slippery. A tattoo acts as a physical anchor. It's a way to say, look, amidst all this digital noise, at least this part of me is fixed and real. It's an external signpost pointing outward to tell absolutely everyone else who they are.
But you grew up allowed to just be private. You possess a stable inner sense of self that never needed a band shirt or an inked lyric to prove it was real. You didn't have an identity that you carried around in your hand, desperately looking for a place to mount it. You didn't need to post a photo of your vacation to prove you actually went on it, and you certainly didn't need ink on your forearm to remember what a lyric meant to you. The meaning was already safely stored inside. Your identity wasn't some moving target that needed to be nailed down. It was a quietly established internal reality.
So that leaves us with a fascinating question to wrap up this explainer. By holding back and watching the wave, you remain one of the only people left who can still be a surprise. Which leaves us to wonder, is the cleanest move sometimes making no move at all? I mean, in a modern world where absolutely everyone is broadcasting who they are at top volume through sleeves, bios, and collarbone quotes, your untattooed arm kind of makes you an enigma. You haven't pre-printed your identity on your wrapper. You ran the algorithm, you evaluated the permanent commitment, and you recognized that keeping your options open and leaving the canvas blank was actually the ultimate flex. It's a fascinating look at the quiet power of opting out. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, keep questioning the obvious.